Our notes for tonight are about the three different regions of the American colonies and about two important terms, specialization and interdependence. Specialization and interdependence. Two important ideas that are related to each other, as we'll see. So we know from discussing in class that the colonies are kind of broken into three different regions, sort of distinct areas of colonial America. And each region specialized in different skills and products. People did different jobs, they made different things, and each region depended on the others in order to get all of what they needed. That's kind of the main idea of this set of notes. Before we get into the resources that are in each region, we need to talk about a couple key terms. The first is natural resources, and what this means is useful items that come directly from nature. So some examples might be lumber, right? Or fish are a natural resource, right? So useful things that come directly from nature. Human resources are exactly what they sound like. The people who actually produce goods and services. So, shipbuilders are a human resource. Fishermen are a human resource. And they're going to use the natural resources to make something or to do something. Specialization is a term that means focusing on making only one or a few products. So specializing on one or a few products. And interdependence means when two or more regions rely on each other for goods and services. So what we're going to see is that each region has natural resources and human resources. Because of that, they're able to specialize in making certain goods, and they're going to be dependent on the other regions for the rest of the things that they need. So let's start up north with the New England colonies. And as you can see from this, this drawing here, trading, the water, ships, all going to be an important part of what's going on here. So first off, what natural resources were there? And the answer to that is lumber, lots and lots of trees in New England, fish, and deep harbors. So that sets itself up very well for shipbuilding and a couple of other things. What sort of human resources did they have? Skilled craftsmen, shopkeepers, and shipbuilders. And this is not a full list. It's not like these are the only things they have, but these are some of the most important. So skilled craftsmen are going to be able to make things. Shopkeepers will run shops and trade and sell goods, and shipbuilders will take all of that lumber and make ships out of them. So what did they specialize in producing? They caught a lot of fish. They made a lot of ships that could be used for navies and for trading. And those craftsmen specialized in making a lot of metal tools and equipment. So that's what they specialized in. So what did they need to get from the other colonies? Well, they needed tobacco, rice, and cotton from the Southern Colonies. And they got things like livestock and wheat and grain from the Middle Colonies. So as you can imagine, right, those are going to be the things that the Southern Colonies and the Middle Colonies specialize in. So let's move next to the Middle Colonies. The Middle Colonies are kind of a mix of the other two in some ways. What natural resources were there? In the Middle Colonies, there's a lot of good farmland. There's a lot of rivers. There's a lot of fish. What sort of human resources did they have? They had some skilled workers, but they had some unskilled workers too. They had farmers, they had fishermen. So what did they specialize in producing? Obviously, if you've got fishermen and rivers, you're going to be able to catch some fish. Raising livestock and producing grain. So what did they have to get from the other colonies? Again, they needed tobacco, rice, and cotton from the south because they weren't able to grow it themselves. And they relied on New England for particularly the metal tools and the equipment that you have to use on the farms in the Middle Colonies. That brings us to the Southern Colonies, of which Virginia was one of them. And we know that there's going to be large plantations. We know that there's going to be slave labor in the fields. So what natural resources were there? Very, very good farmland. Good amount of rivers, deep harbors. Okay, that's going to allow you to do some trading. What human resources were in the South? Primarily farmers and enslaved African Americans. So with those sorts of resources, you can imagine that they specialize in producing crops, especially cash crops. So the South's economy is pretty much based all on cash crops: tobacco, rice, indigo, and cotton. So what did they need from the other colonies? They get their livestock, they get their grain, and some other crops from the Middle Colonies. And they would rely on New England for the metal tools and the equipment that they needed out in the tobacco fields and the rice fields. Now, with the information about the different resources and the different specialized products in each region, I'd like for you to take a stab at answering a couple of connection questions. The first one is, how did the environment in each region lead to specialization? How did the environment in each region lead to specialization? And how did specialization lead to interdependence between the regions? Take your best shot at these questions. You might get it and it makes sense, so that it might not be that hard of a question. But even if you think it's a hard question, you're not quite sure, look back over your notes and give it your best shot, and we can talk about them in our next class.